So I think, Rocio, should we go ahead and get started? Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Michael Dotson. I'm the Vice President and CRA Outreach Officer of Banner Bank, and I also have the privilege of serving as the Treasurer for the Financial Empowerment Network. I want to say that this is a great opportunity for Banner Bank. We love the opportunity to get behind these type of subject matter, these endeavors where we can bring subject matter experts into the market and provide knowledge and to various practitioners who are serving the community. Our primary focus areas for Banner Bank are affordable housing, community services, economic development, and revitalization as it relates to kind of giving back to the community. We do that in a variety of ways, and again, forums like these are a great way for us to kind of get behind through sponsorship and bring that expertise in the market. So I truly appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. This is the first of a four-session series. The series objective is to offer local and national coalitions resources and knowledge for leadership development, sustainability, and succession planning. The first session provides a funding example with an overview of the California Senate Bill 455, the Financial Empowerment Fund. The emphasis there was on unbanked and underbanked populations, sponsored by the Mission Asset Fund, and that was in 2019. And for those of us who are in Washington State, we had similar legislation passed in 2007, and that was known as the Family Prosperity Act, and that's currently administered by the Washington State Department of Commerce. And this act aims to assist our local asset building coalitions. And now our presenter today is Rocio Rodarte, Policy and Communications Manager at Mission Asset Fund. Rocio supports MAF's research, communication, and policy work advancing programs, services, and system change efforts in partnership with low-income and immigrant communities. Her work at MAF is centered on evaluating the impact of MAF's Rapid Response Fund and using these insights to advance strategies that can help build a more inclusive and equitable community. Rocio previously served as a legislative assistant to U.S. Senator Michael Bennet, a Democrat from Colorado, focusing on immigration, labor, and civil rights policies. And prior to her time on the Hill, she worked at Lake Research Partners, and it's a national political strategy research firm. She served as a logistics assistant and a junior analyst. Rocio has a master's degree in public affairs from Princeton University and a bachelor's degree in international relations from Brown University. So welcome, Rocio, and again, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael, for that lovely introduction. Thank you, Alice and the Financial Empowerment Network for inviting me to represent Mission Asset Fund today. It's truly a treat, so thank you very much for the kind offer. So today I'm going to be talking about the SB 455, California's Financial Empowerment Fund, which my organization, Mission Asset Fund, played a key role in getting through the state legislature. Just to do a quick overview, I know we have I guess a little bit under an hour at this point. A couple of things I wanted to cover before we get into the Q&A. First of all, I recognize that a lot of you might not be familiar with the Mission Asset Fund, so definitely want to spend a bit of time talking about our work, so you're aware of where we're coming from, our values, why we do this work. Then I'll jump into the SB 455, why MAF got involved, why it's important that we keep pushing for similar legislation and similar policies. And then the work ahead, how to wrap it up, how can we work together, what other policies can we think of? And in the Q&A section at the end, you're welcome to put questions in the chat box. I think Alice will be helping me monitor those as I present. But essentially, definitely want to hear from you. I don't want it to be just me talking for an hour. Definitely want to hear your thoughts and ideas and suggestions. And again, I think we're all working on the for a similar cause here. So the more we can strategize and brainstorm together, the better. So definitely look forward to also hearing from you at the end of this and throughout the conversation. So to get started, Mission Asset Fund, who are we? So this is our mission. We are on a mission to help people become visible, active, and successful. And so to hone in on what we mean by that, we know that there are so many people that lack credit scores in the US. These are financially invisible folks. And so one of our goals is to open up strategies, create opportunities so that they can access the financial marketplace through credit scores. We want them to be active participants of this financial marketplace. As we know, a credit score is the entry point to everything that you do in the financial marketplace. You can't do much without one. So not only do we want communities that don't have access to it to get a credit score, but we want them to be active players. We want them to, save, budget, whatever it is they need to do, buy a home, whatever goals they have for themselves. And finally, we're doing all of this because we want them to be successful. And by that, we mean that we want them to achieve financial security, financial well-being. I know we all have different ways of talking about this, but for us at MAF, financial well-being, financial security, it's not a final destination, it's a state of being. We want our clients to feel consistently that they're able to meet their needs and obligations. So we want them to have those resources, those tools in order to feel financially secure, however they for themselves feel that way. So that is who we are. And why did we start? Why were we founded? So we were founded in 2000, about 15 years ago at this point, in the Mission District of San Francisco. It's a heavily low-income immigrant community for those of you that are not familiar with the area. But essentially at the time, there was a study, and essentially there were predatory loans, lending shops in every corner. I think there were like 70 in a mass area just within the Mission District. And so, of course, there was a big need. These are primarily low-income and immigrant communities. They don't have access to, I think half of them, 50% of the Mission Area District were underbanked, unbanked. They didn't have access to checking accounts. A lot of them didn't have credit scores. A lot of them, even if they had a checking account, didn't have access to financial services through their banks. So there was a huge need, and that's where we stepped up. And so, again, a lot of folks were invisible. A lot of people were living in the financial shadows. 1 in 5 adults, just to cite a couple of quick stats again, that shows like the severity of this problem. 1 in 5 adults in the US are invisible to the financial mainstream. Again, they don't have credit scores. A lot of folks feel stuck. We've had over 40 years of wage stagnation, which reduces opportunities to climb up that economic ladder, to have intergenerational wealth. And folks feel strapped. I believe about 10% of them spend their income on fees and interest, which is a large, when you're already not earning a lot of money for a lot of these low income communities, like to spend a 10% of it on fees, unnecessary fees that drive you further into poverty is just not the way that we think things should be done. So enter MAF. So we came into the scene, and essentially, we're a credit building organization, and everything we've done has been through this model, this community-centered approach. We are from the community, and we work with communities in order to advance strategies that work for them with the goal of not driving them further into poverty. So first, we engage with them. We listen to people. What do they actually need? How can we meet them where they are? What can we give them that actually works for them at that time? How do we co-create with them in developing these products? So this is not something that we just went in and we developed. We worked with community members to develop these financial products. Second, we build with them. As I said, we co-create with them. We build technology. We actually have a MyMath app that has a bunch of financial education modules that folks do before they enter our lending circles, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we build with communities, we co-create with them, and we build technology that looks like them. One of the things that always strikes me when I go into our MyMath app is that 1, it's in multiple languages, and 2, the little icons, as you can see in the center, look like us. They look like communities of color. And I've never seen that in another app, so I just remember being struck by that when I first saw it a couple years ago. So we build products that look like the communities that we serve. And then, we're doing all this work, but we want to scale it, and we scale through partnerships. Years ago, we do have our central office in San Francisco in the Mission District. Years ago, we could have opened offices all over the country, all over California, but we made the deliberate decision not to do that because we wanted to partner with local communities instead. To date, we partner with over 75 nonprofits across the country to do lending circles, to do other programs in 20 states and DC. So we're always looking forward, we're always looking to scale the work that we're doing through in partnership with communities that know their communities better. So talk about lending circles in a little bit. And then finally, we mobilize people into action. And I guess this goes hand in hand with scaling too. We are creating financial products. We're seeing the impact this does in our communities, but we also want to scale it by doing legislation. We scale through technology. As I mentioned, our MyMath app is able to reach more folks because a lot of people are able to access the application. Since the pandemic hit, our financial coaches, let me backtrack a little, our financial coaches used to do financial coaching sessions in a couple of Mexican consulates in San Francisco and in San Jose as part of our financial education outreach. And since the pandemic, since we can do in person, they've moved on to do Facebook chat live sessions, and we're reaching thousands of people more in that way. So again, finding ways to scale when even in crisis, finding alternative ways to reach more folks. And so we scale through technology, we scale through partnerships, and we scale through systems change. Legislation, SB 455 is one of the bills that we've spearheaded and worked to get through the legislature. We've done a couple of other bills in the past as well. So we had some previous existing relationships before we did SB 455. And then finally, we want to mobilize our clients into action. By that, we mean we want them to feel empowered, that they have the tools they need to do their own self-advocacy, to go out and do their own financial planning, to do, like I said, advocacy is a big component of it. So we want to empower our clients to be able to take whatever we've worked on together to do on their own and spread. So this is really the essence of everything that we do with every program, service, policy. And so just to spend a little bit more time on our lending circles, it's just an example of the work we do. It's at the heart of what we do. So we recognize, our value system really drives the work that we do. We want to respect people, we want to treat them with dignity, and we really want to meet them where they are in their financial journey. So, when Lending Circles, our first program back in 2007 was created, it wasn't a brand new idea. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We looked into practices that immigrant communities were already doing. You've heard of them all across the world, tandas, cestas, different names, but essentially a group of people come together and they each put in a certain amount of money, let's say $50, and then every month they each take turns grabbing a pool of that funding. And so this was an existing practice in these communities. And what MAF did, we stepped in to formalize that. So many of these people were already doing that, paying back each month, showing that they had this good financial habit, but they just weren't getting any credit for it. And so we stepped in and we formalized that process by reporting that to credit agencies. So today, when our clients participate in a lending circle formation, we do report that payment to all 3 major credit bureaus. And in that way, people will, first of all, they open a checking account. That's the first step. So they become banked. They have to do financial education models. So we're a strong proponent that we just don't give a person a financial product. You have to pair it with financial education, because after 15 years of doing this, we know that that's what works for people. That's how they're able to improve their financial lives, by pairing the product with the financial education. And so ultimately, we're able to offer our clients responsible and safe social loans. We offer other loans that are 0% interest rate. And all of this is made accessible and relevant. We have staff that speak their language. We have staff that go step by step with their applications if they need the support. And ultimately, by participating in lending circles, they're able to reduce their debt, improve their credit scores, and do a lot of other things that we think are meaningful in people's lives. And in addition to that, we also do social loan programs. A huge part of what we do is, like I said, listening to the clients that we serve. We want to be adaptable, and we want to be relevant. So we do immigration loans. A lot of our clients are immigrants. So we offer 0% interest rate loans for DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, US citizenship fees, green cards, and a bunch of other visa applications. We work with them to structure how much they can give back, how long is it going to take. Same with our business loans. Immigrants have the largest rates of entrepreneurship in the country. So we listen and we know that they want to open their own businesses. So we offer, and we're starting to expand the amount of business loans that we offer. 0% interest rate. Again, we work with them to create these terms on their own terms, so that they're able to pursue their financial dreams. And then another aspect I wanted to jump into. So we are historically a credit building organization, but in the last year, we became a direct cash assistance organization as well. When COVID happened, we knew, again, given the communities that we serve, that there would be people that would be left out of federal relief, because that's what we've seen continuously happen over and over again, and sadly. And so we sprung into action, and over the course of the week, we fundraised a couple $1 million. What started as 5 ended up being to date more than $70 million in direct cash assistance. And the largest one was for immigrant families who were not eligible for any of in the beginning for the CARES Act. And then eventually we adapted to not being eligible for any of the federal stimulus checks. So to this date, we actually continue to give grants. So families that are undocumented and mixed status and did not qualify for any of the checks, we still have a fund available that we're still giving out. College students, through we had a college funder reach out, and they wanted to fund low-income California students. So we gave out $500 grants to low-income students in California's 3 major public systems. And then finally, we had another funder in the creatives industry reach out saying, I want to support young folks. And so to us, this is a testament that, the field has faith in our ability to make this happen. And for us, it's our way of showing up for communities that we know, like I said, that are going to be left out. So we developed a financial equity framework in order to prioritize who would get the funding based on folks with the greatest financial need. So again, just wanted to highlight this because this has actually been a lot of the work, a lot of the evaluation work I've done in direct cash assistance, but just wanted to highlight that it is a newer aspect of our work, but something that we're still continuing to do and actually expand on in addition to our credit building. And so just to wrap up the rapid response section, so direct cash assistance, we also created a resource finder. So again, stepping in, like, what do people need in their moment of crisis? They need to be connected. They don't know what options are even available to them. So we created an online resource finder, also emergency bridge loans for those who are able to do that. And so to sum up our work, again, just wanted to do this because I thought it would be helpful to tell us who are we and why are we doing this work. Through our credit building work over the last 15 years, we've given actually more than 12 million in 0% interest rate loans. I think, to me, one of the most astonishing things that I always like to highlight, and it just reiterates our strengths-based approach, looking at poor people and saying, you're doing good things, it's just the system that's not working for you. Of our clients, we have a 99.3 repayment rate. People pay back their debt. People pay back their loans. And so for us, we always like to uplift that because, like, we know that already, but we're seeing, like, the proof in the pudding. We're seeing that clients are actually doing this, and we always like to uplift that. Our loan clients are able to increase their credit scores by an average of 168 points. One thing I couldn't fit here, but I also wanted to reiterate or to highlight, we had an external evaluator come in to assess the impact of our lending circles. And they found that a lending circles participant on average reduced their debt by $2,400. Whereas folks in the control group who did not participate in the lending circles formation increased their debt by $2,700. So again, just to highlight just the impact that we're able to achieve through these lending circle formations. And then finally, for our grants, to date, we've given over 50,000 direct cash assistance grants for COVID relief for those who were impacted by COVID. So that is who we are. I know that was quite a mouthful, but again, I think all this comes down to, why did we do the California Financial Empowerment Fund? Why did we pursue this? And I think, looking back at our community-centered approach model, we listen to people, we build, we scale, and we mobilize. To us, this was a way to scale the work that we were doing. We're very proud of the work we've done. We want to keep doing, we want to keep partnering with other organizations. But ultimately, we are of the mindset that in order to really scale, we need government. And so back in 2019, our organization worked very closely to move this through the California legislature. So SB 455, the California Financial Empowerment Fund, it essentially, for those of you that are not familiar, it created and endowed the California Fund with $4 million using civil penalty funds. So these are funds that are collected, that companies give when they have defrauded consumers. So the CFPB has the model, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but essentially refurbishing funds for good is the way we like to put it. So $4 million were allocated there. The fund breaks it down so that each year $1 million is given out to different nonprofits who are delivering effective financial education and empowerment tools. And it also sunsets in a couple years. So it was for about a 5-year time frame. So before delving into a little bit more of the bill and how we made it happen, I wanted to answer a couple quick questions about why we pursued this bill in particular. One, as I've already talked about, there's a high need, the local level in San Francisco, at the national level, and in California. And so these are some quick stats in California that made this problem all the more pressing to policymakers. So, what is the problem definition? Why do we even have to do this? And 1 in 4 Californian households are either unbanked or underbanked. Nearly 2 million California consumers took out almost $3 billion in payday loans in 2017. Californians carry an average of $10,500 in credit card debt, the 4th highest in the nation. And again, almost 10% of income spent on fees and interest. So for us, this is a clear problem. California needs to do something about this. Many Californians rely on high-cost financial products and services to meet their pressing needs. And so for us at MAF, it was important to help co-sponsor this bill, to sponsor this bill to help Californians who face systemic barriers improve their lives. So major problem to address. Another thing that made it, I guess something that made it easier to pursue this path or this idea is that we have precedent for this happening. So the 2010 Dodd-Frank reform created this new civil penalty fund through the CFPB. And so essentially through this fund, again, companies that have defrauded consumers pay fees, enforcement fees into the civil penalty fund. And through the fund, it was set up so that those funds can be used for 2 purposes. One, to give back funding for consumers that were harmed through these practices, and 2, for financial education. It's something that the CFPB in general has not tapped into as much as we would like, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it is precedent. This is already a structure that is in place. So that was kind of the inspiring, what inspired us to take the initiative to want to pursue it at the state level. And then secondly, CFPB has incredible resources, financial education resources. A couple years, I think back in 2017, they created a manual, the 5 principles of effective financial education. And, it's things like listen to your client, know who you're serving, provide actionable financial resources, improve financial skills, motivate clients so they continue engaging, and finally, giving them the tools so that they can self-advocate for themselves. So at a very high level, those are the 5 principles. But having this benchmark of how we assess effective financial education was also incredibly helpful in putting the bill together. So just wanted to highlight that the precedent, CFPB's precedent was really helpful in pushing this through. And finally, another reason why we did it too was because we were in California where we had a lot of supporters that were interested in making this happen. So once we started pitching the idea, we got a lot of support. We didn't start with as much support. It took a lot of advocacy on our end for sure. But, when we pitched the idea, people were like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. So I think it's worth noting that for folks in California, this was pretty much a very accessible idea. I think there were a couple of organizations that had some concern with it, but the only reason they had concern with the bill language in general was because they felt that the fund should not be used for financial education, but instead prioritized for those consumers who had been harmed. And again, still available for both, but they just felt like one option should not be used and only the other. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But essentially wanted to highlight that when we were pushing for this legislation, we had overwhelming support from nonprofits, from allies. The more we met with policymakers in Sacramento to talk about it, the more they were receptive about it. So I think we were very lucky too that we had a lot of support. So I think that was another reason why that policy window opened for us, that there was general support both in Sacramento and across California. And so this brings me to the key provisions of the bill. I first wanted to lay the scene of like what motivated us, like what prompted this, because I think there were pieces in line that facilitated that. So what's actually on the bill? As I said, it's $4 million. And each year we get the Department of, let me backtrack up a little bit. So these funds are distributed through the Department of Business Oversight in California. And they are supposed to, I think another thing I wanted to flag is like what changed is that those funds were already there. What the bill and then later the law did is that they required that they disperse those funds. So we didn't create something from scratch. Like the law was already there. We just changed the wording to make it a requirement. And essentially grants, the new requirement states that within this fund, the Department of Business Oversight grants up to $100,000, up to $100,000. So it could be a little bit less, to nonprofits who are conducting financial education in at-risk communities, low-income communities. And so the funding is a huge aspect. Again, this is critical because this is the first time the state of California is giving funds for this. The funds are coming from the state. They're not coming from anywhere else. So one, reiterating where these funds came from is very important. Two, there were standards built into this legislation. I think, having worked in federal legislation and having worked on in a different level, it's always important to have a benchmark. If you're saying like, I want to improve people's financial education, like how are you doing that? If you're giving funding to so many different nonprofits, how do you know that they're doing it in a similar way? And so having standards, again, it helped that we had CFPB's 5 principles of effective education. We had a benchmark to offer to say like, this is how we're going to track this, or these are the requirements we're going to ask when nonprofits apply. So it's not as all over the place. And finally, tracking impact. One of the major provisions in the bill is that it should improve people's financial well-being. And there's so many metrics that can be used to track this: improving credit score, increased savings, lower debt, a lot more that can be used to track that. So these were the 3 key components of this legislation. And funding for CFPB. I know I talked about it a little bit, but wanted to reiterate that the funding comes from essentially the civil penalties fund within California, which is called the State Corporation Fund within the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. So last year, the Department of Business Oversight, which was what's written in the law, they were the ones in charge of administering these funds. They were rebranded. And so now our new Department of Business Oversight is called the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. And I think for us in California, it signals that the state is ready to be more blunt about the want to protect more consumer rights, the idea of being more innovative with the way that we offer low-income and at-risk communities options to have access to safe and affordable financial products. So we definitely welcome that change, but just wanted to reiterate that it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The Department of Business Oversight became this new department. So this is where the funding comes through their civil penalty funds. And then another thing I wanted to touch on was the timing. We were thrilled when we learned that we didn't have to renew this every year. Again, coming from a ledge background, like it's so hard to get things renewed. So we were thrilled that we were able to negotiate that into the bill. So it goes up for 4 years, $1 million each year. I think something that also comes up is the funding. Of course, we would have loved more funding. We're always going to ask for more funding in order to help people have access to these products, safe and affordable products. But I think that's something that we had to compromise. And, we obviously had folks who were like, asked for 50 million and 60 million. And it's like, if you want to start something new, we knew we had to negotiate on the amount. So just wanted to flag that. Obviously, we would have liked more, but we see this as an excellent entry point into getting this through. And it helped in gaining momentum and having bipartisan support. So just wanted to show you also a timeline of this, because to me, it always blows my mind how quickly it moved. This was introduced, and let me backtrack even before February. Like the idea for this started late 2018, January 2019. There was a policy opening. Like I said, MAF had previously worked on other pieces of legislation in California that had passed. So we had those relationships in Sacramento. We had those contacts, especially in the Senate Banking Committee. that we were regularly in touch with and regularly bouncing ideas and seeing how can we step in, how can we show our research, our impact to scale that and to find alternative ways to give folks more financial education in the state and other financial tools and products. So we already had those ongoing conversations, and I think everything aligned in the beginning of the year, and it happened so quickly. Like, this bill was written within a few weeks. It was our CEO, Jose Quinones, stepping in he was the one that really led this a couple years ago. He had those existing relationships. We had, as I said, the impact to show when we were meeting with Sacramento offices. Like, they were just struck by the impact that we were showing, that our services were doing. And we were using that to ask for more for other nonprofits. And that's something that we always like to say too. Like, we weren't asking for money for us. We were asking funding in the state level to scale so that other nonprofits can also do this in their local communities. Because again, we believe in partnerships and scaling. And so, as you can see in this timeline, the bill was introduced February 21st. It passed in October, and it quickly, and even if you see these vote counts, they were unanimous votes the whole time. We had a lot of bipartisan support from the beginning. So even Republican support, Democrat support, and that made it easier for sure. So I think that the policy landscape, the political landscape aligned in California. There was an opportunity, there was interest. We were told we had a couple weeks to meet the filing deadline for the bills, and it worked out. And so I think overall, it was a pretty smooth process. And again, I think that there are a lot of dynamics that account for that. But just showing this timeline again, like, having worked in federal law, it takes forever to get anything passed. This is just astonishing to me and something we're really excited about. So where is SB 455 today? We, as I mentioned earlier, the department has been rebranded as the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. The program is actually, so the bill, when it became law, the program was called the California Financial Empowerment Fund. The department has actually rebranded it as the Cal Money Smart Program. So surely something to be said about messaging there. Definitely sounds nice. But that's on their end. We had nothing to do with that. That was more on the program implementation and design aspect of, not design, program implementation aspect of it. So if you're ever interested in tracking where that is, definitely look it up under the Cal Money Smart Program, not the California Financial Empowerment Fund. The program kicked off last year, so organizations were able to apply starting July 2020, just wrapped up the first year. The application period for the second round of funding is open now. So if nonprofits in California are interested in applying to that, but essentially, again, it's going to go for 4 years, and there are reporting requirements. So the evaluation requirements for the first year are not due until later this year. The pandemic definitely shifted some of the timelines, but we'll be able to start seeing that impact that this funding, the state funding, is doing, and organizations' ability to provide more financial education. So that's where it is today. And to wrap up, because I know I've already been talking for way too long, just wanted to reiterate why for us SB 455 was so important. One, it was a way of engaging with state policymakers. As I said, we've been doing this in partnership, our work at Mission Asset Fund, in partnership with funders, obviously, who give us the support we need, philanthropy, and partners at the local level who help us scale our programs. But, as much as we do of that, as I said earlier, like, we really believe that in order to scale, we need government help. We need state and federal. So we're always going to push for federal options too. But for us, this was a good first step. Let's scale locally first. Let's do California state policy and see what happens. And it worked. And again, it's something that we're going to definitely ask for a renewal when the time comes. As I said, our first reporting requirements come out at the end of the year for year one, and then that'll be the case for each year after that. And we really hope that we see the impact. I mean, I have no doubt that we'll see good impact in there. We see it in our programs alone. So I'm sure that having many more nonprofits show that impact will only help the cause to ask for more funding, for more supports at the state level that are funding through the state, because it shows that the state of it's not just about funding, it's about showing that the state of California is engaged in these issues, that they care and that they want to do something about it. So one, super critical to engage government in this. Two, it places high standards on design and delivery. Like I said, having those 5 principles from CFPB as far as benchmarks was critical. Coming from policy, like, you have to show a benchmark. You can't just go in there and say, I'm going to prove this. How are you going to prove it? What are you using to assess this? So I think it really helped that we had those 5 principles to use as benchmarks. and it provides more effective resources to consumers. I think for us, especially in the pandemic, something that we've seen is that a lot of nonprofits have lost a lot of their funding. And for us, it's critical to find additional sources of funding for those nonprofits that need the support. And so if they're able to get state funds, refurbished civil penalty funds, that is a way that those nonprofits that are in dire financial need are able to still continue helping their low-income communities and their communities in need. So it definitely allows for that, for nonprofits to do that. And then finally, it's an example of what can be done. We're very excited that we were able to make this happen in California. Like I said, we definitely want to keep pushing for more, show our impact, ask for more resources, ask for other policies as well. But even starting small and doing this and then building on that can be a great way to set an example for what can be done, not just in California, but hopefully for other states. So these are some key components of why this was important. And then finally, to actually wrap up, we're always going to keep advocating for more. Like I said, scaling and mobilizing are huge components of the work that we care about at MAF, that drive our work, our value system. We're always going to ask for more funding for our clients. We're always going to do more partnerships. Again, partnering, leveraging that trust is so critical. Bringing in other players. We couldn't have passed this bill without all this coalition support that we ended up getting. I think we got over 35 letters of support from different entities, from nonprofits, policymakers, allies, even national organizations. So partnerships are critical. And then finally, more state and federal policies. We definitely cannot keep stressing, as a policy person, cannot keep stressing the importance of that. One of the areas that I wanted to flag that we're also looking into, and this is something that Jose, our CEO, has written a couple of op-eds about, is using CFPB's civil penalty funds in order to give more of that funding for financial education. As I mentioned earlier, those funds can be used for victims that have been harmed, have been defrauded, and also in addition can also be used for financial education. Jose and the head of CBA, the Credit Builders Alliance, wrote an op-ed last year asking for CFPB to create minimums. Like, so many of these funds are not being used. So I think as of September 2020, the CFPB Civil Penalty Fund had about $575 million from those penalty funds, and only 11 million had gone back to consumers who had been harmed. And so we're not asking for a whole reshift, just like a bare minimum, 1%, like just something so that those funds do not go unused and can be used to help people, especially now, especially during the pandemic, have a chance at rebuilding their credit, paying back their debt. Debt is a huge thing that we're very worried about now. How are we going to help people rebuild their financial lives? And so I think this is a time to be creative and find alternative ways to help our consumers. I think there was a Pew Research article a month ago saying that of those Americans who had lost income, 44%, because of the pandemic, 44% thought it would take them 3 years at least to rebuild their financial lives. And another 10% thought they would never rebuild their financial lives. So I think all this to say is that the time is now to start working on these different options to help people rebuild, to help them achieve financial security, financial well-being. And that is always what we're going to do, trying to find different ways of scaling that, of doing more so that more clients can do this. So that is at the heart of why we did SB 455, and we're going to do more, and we look forward to hearing from you. So I think I'm going to wrap up there because I have definitely talked for way too long. Alice, I don't know if you're going to jump back in here.
Thank you so much, Rocio. Rocio, I have a couple questions for you. One is from Ventures, and they are looking for, in the San Fernando Valley in particular, who are some of the nonprofits that received funding that could be referred to for assistance, especially entrepreneurial help?
Okay. And I think, and you said this is Ventura, the organization?
It was Ventures. Ventures, yeah, Ventures here in Seattle.
In Seattle. Okay. So Ventures, I'm going to have to get back to you because I am not in the programs. Like I said, we have 75 nonprofits, and unfortunately, I do not know the names of all of them. We definitely have some in San Fernando Valley. But I can definitely get back to you if you give me some contact name, because that would be a programs question for us, which I'm not in. So I can definitely get back to you on that, but happy to do that.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And you can, I'll make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. Let's see, I have another question from Molly. Molly, thank you. Is the financial education prescribed by the services they are seeking, or do your financial coaches meet with folks to determine what financial education they need before assigning it?
Yes, no, that's super critical to what we do. So again, one of our core values is meeting people where they are. And so we do that one by meeting them in consulates. Like I said, that's our traditional method of doing financial coaching. We go to Mexican consulates, and while people are waiting for their application or whatever they need to do there, we have our coaches floating around saying like, do you need help doing this? Do you need help doing that? Is there anything I can answer? And that's what triggers the interest. And so people come and they're like, I have this debt. How would I go about doing this? And then from there, our financial coaches bring out their sheet. They map out a plan like, okay, where are you? Again, meeting where you are. Where are you in your financial journey? So from there, they map out like family, how much income, what they have. So like trying to put a picture of this strategy. And from there, our financial coaches ask the person, like, what can you do? What are you able to do? How fast? And so I think the basic idea is that we work with, our financial coaches work with people to make sure that whatever, well, one, the client, the financial goal is coming from the client. And then the client is also relaying their limitations, what they can do. And from there, the coach makes offerings like, well, given this, given your situation, these are the options that could be helpful to you. And of course, the client is always welcome to amend that. And the the coach continues to be a support throughout the process, checking in on their module or on their financial planning. I forget the official name for it, but essentially it is a very customized plan that the financial coach offers. And it's all based on where that person is and what they can do and their financial reality.
So thank you. I have a question that I think maybe others may have. We have folks on the call today from all over the United States. I mean, we have folks from Atlanta, from Baltimore and Maryland, Tennessee. So there's just a number of folks from all over the country. And if you were to make a recommendation, what next steps would you recommend if they wanted to replicate Senate Bill 455 in their own state?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. And we would love people in other states to replicate this for sure. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to summarize some of what I said, but I think I definitely have a couple key ingredients that I think would be very helpful. But to begin with, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are already doing this, but know the lay of the land. What is your policy, state level policy look like? Or is this something that's of interest to them? Are they aware of the issue? I think that sadly, sometimes problem recognition is not often acknowledged. Like, do people actually recognize the problem? So one, recognizing the problem, doing a lay of the land in your state. Again, is there support for this? What is happening on the ground? Are there other local nonprofits that are already advocating for this? Because that definitely helps speed it up if you can get more numbers in your coalition building. So I think at a baseline, I think those two things would be important. In addition to that, I think three things that stick out to me as well to really help in that process is one, partnerships. And with that, relationships. Like I said, it really helped us that we had relationships in Sacramento because we had already worked in other legislation. So if you have those relationships. If you don't have them, make them. Go meet with, your constituents. You can always meet with policymakers whenever you want. Something I always like to remind, having previously worked in government, ask for those meetings. They cannot tell you no. You have a right to ask for those meetings. Share your information, share if you're running a service provision, a financial education program, share your impact, leave those flyers behind. So I think building those relationships, because you're going to have to keep advocating. Like I said, we had an opening that happened in the beginning of 2019, but we had been advocating for this for years. So it all happened to align in that time frame. So make those relationships, partner with other nonprofits so you can split up the work, because meeting with legislative offices can be very time consuming. So the more folks you have on board, the better, which goes back to my second point, advocacy. Show your impact, show what you're doing, make yourself known in the state. That's another thing that helped us. People had heard of our work for a little while, and that opened doors for sure for the meetings that we were looking for. So find ways to amplify your work. And I think that goes neatly into the third thing I was going to say, which was like, show the impact. I think for us in California, it helped us at Mission Asset Fund to show our lending circles impact, to show how when you pair these financial products with financial education, we're able to achieve this impact, cut back debt, reduce poverty, whatever, however you want to frame it. But like, I think looking at that impact will be critical because it's something policymakers, there's a lot of doubt. And I feel like often you're guilty until proven innocent. And so you're always going to have to show up with the numbers. And so for us, it helped for us to bring our impact numbers. And I think for other states in a year from now or later this year, you can look at our impact, look at California and go to the new department to see this is all going to be public information. Like check out how people's financial well-being improved once they got this financial education through these state funds. So you can always look at California's impact to be able to push for more. So if anything, you'll have an advantage. You'll see how it's going for us in order to be able to take those learning lessons and that impact for yours.
So thank you so much, Rocio. I just want to say for everyone on the call, just a reminder that Mission Asset Fund, you could bring a lending circle to your own state, your own community. Also too, reach out to others, and hopefully the recording will be available shortly. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Alice. And my email is acody, CODAY, at everyoneiswelcome.org. I'll collect all the questions and be happy to forward them on to Rocio. Thank you, everyone. Any other questions before we conclude today's session? Just a reminder, there are 3 additional sessions coming up, so please register and spread the word. So I don't see any other questions. Molly did have a question. Molly is calling from Tennessee. And thank you, Molly, for being here. Her question was on the prior question. Is there a time limit for clients with the coaching and?
Oh, individual coaching? No. And I guess I'm trying to understand, like timing, like we only spend like a certain amount of time with them. Is that the question, the timing question?
So Molly, if you're still on the call, if you want to put it in the chat.
I guess just to start answering in case she's dropped off, but if it's timing as far as how long our coaches spend with clients, I think the initial conversation is usually about half an hour because they are in a consulate with a lot of people coming up. So it's usually half an hour, but then from there, they can schedule hour-long appointments, how many ever they need to continue the conversation. So there's usually like an intake, and that's like the 30-minute starting of that relationship. And then if there's more interest, if they want to keep engaging from there, they schedule appointments with our financial coaches, which are in hour increments. But there's no cap, if that's the question.
Oh, here's her question. Can they see a financial coach as often or as long as they need? And so the answer was yes. And so thank you so much, Molly, for that question. Again, I want to thank Rocio for taking time out of her day to provide her knowledge and expertise on this subject. Again, on the screen, you see how you can reach out to Mission Asset Fund if you're interested in any of their lending circles or information. Please reach out to them. Also, feel free to send me questions, and I would be happy to collect them and forward them out to everyone who attended. Again, I hope to have the recording available here shortly. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.